To help us unpack these issues, we're joined by Africa analyst and Africa briefing publisher, Jonathan Orfe Ansa. A very good evening to you. Thank you so much for joining us and welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Perhaps let's start here. I mean, what exactly is at the heart of the legal challenge to Ghana's two-term presidential limit?
The heart of this case is the meaning of Article 66, Clause 2 of the 1992 Constitution, which says a person cannot be elected president for more than 2 terms, in quotes, for more than 2 terms. And the applicants want the Supreme Court to decide whether that means 2 terms over a person's lifetime or only 2 consecutive terms. And their argument is that when the 2 terms are separated by a full electoral cycle, the constitutional restriction may no longer apply. And so the court is therefore being asked to clarify whether a break in service effectively resets presidential eligibility.
So why has this issue now resurfaced? This is despite the constitutional provision that you speak to appearing to be straightforward to many observers.
No, well, it has resurfaced because Ghana is dealing with a political situation it has never previously encountered under the Fourth Republic. I mean, the current president, President John Mahama, is serving a second term that is separated from his first by 8 years. So that has moved the issue from constitutional theory and into practical politics. And the timing is also important because political parties are beginning to think about the 2028 succession. And even though Mahama has indicated categorically that he will not seek another term, the court's interpretation would apply beyond one individual and could shape future presidential contests.
So as we speak, or perhaps just look at the political implications here, if the courts were to interpret the Constitution differently, what precedent could that set for future leaders?
Well, this is going to be a constitutional, interpretation case, but its political implications, will be very, very considerable. A ruling that allows another presidential bid after a break could affect succession planning within even the governing NDC, the National Democratic Congress, the ruling party, the opposition strategy, and the wider balance of political power. And it could also change how Ghana understands the presidency itself. And also the court will therefore have to avoid appearing to make a decision for or against a particular politician. So its reasoning must establish a clear constitutional rule that can be applied consistently to every former and future president.
So as the discussion, increases and there's many voices and contributors to the discussion, how are Ghanaians responding? Is this dominating public debate, or are voters at this point in time more focused on the economy and, issues that affect them directly, the cost of living and so forth?
Look, let me tell you what, the Ghanaian electorate today is quite sophisticated, I must point out. Right. So yes, everybody is thinking of the economy, how the government economic policies affect them. But at the same time, they have a keen interest in politics, in who rules them, which party, governs, and which president rules them. So Ghanaians are keenly following, the proceedings and are keenly awaiting, the Supreme Court's verdict. And I'm also point out that it is an intellectually arguable position. I want to make that point.
Mm.
And it faces a significant textual hurdle. The article in question, Article 66, Clause 2 of the Constitution, says more than two terms, quote, and it does not use the phrase more than two consecutive terms. So where constitutional drafters, intend only consecutive limits, they usually say so expressly. Even the International Institute of Democracy and Electoral Assistance, which is based in Stockholm, also categorizes Ghana among the West African states, imposing a maximum of two presidential terms in total.
Mm-hmm.
So the applicants may rely on broader constitutional purpose and presidential succession provisions, but those arguments must overcome the ordinary meaning of the actual words used in Article 66 plus 2 of the Constitution.
Yeah. As the final print is essentially being scrutinized in Ghana, we know that across parts of Africa, across the continent, we've seen leaders seeking constitutional changes or reinterpretations to extend their time in office. Is there any concern that this case could be viewed through that broader continental lens, so to speak?
Yes, I mean, Ghanaians are clearly aware of what happens, in other African countries, especially in the West African sub-region. For those who don't know geography, Ghana is in West Africa.
Yes.
Okay, and they draw lessons from what has happened. Now you take a place like Guinea, where the former president Alpha Conde, tweaked the constitution to allow him to go for a third term. Okay, and the result, I mean, it triggered a wave of civil protests, which claimed the lives of about 60 to 20 people, and eventually, precipitated a coup d'etat, and we have a military regime that has morphed into a civilian government in Guinea presently. So Ghanaians are clearly aware, and they are drawn lesson. And the clearest lesson is that democratic erosion does not always begin with a coup. It can begin through constitutional amendments. Okay, and again, let me resolve that. Ghanaians, the last thing the average Ghanaian wants in the country is a coup d'etat. Okay, and these things, like I cited the example of a Guinea, these things can easily, cause a coup. I mean, we have military governments in Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso. Okay, and it could spread across the whole country. So Ghanaians are clearly aware and want to make sure that the succession issue or the term limit issue is resolved to the satisfaction of all concerned.
Yes, because we know that Ghana has long been regarded as one of West Africa's strongest democracies and praised for essentially respecting presidential term limits. Does this case threaten that democratic reputation?
No, actually, I mean, such a ruling, whatever ruling, I mean, could effectively convert, let me digress a bit, convert Ghana's lifetime two-term limit into a consecutive limit without changing the text of the Constitution. And a president could serve 2 terms, leave office for one electoral cycle, and then potentially return for another 2. It might also encourage political parties to organize temporary succession arrangements around former presidents. And the most important issue will be the breadth of the judgment. Unless the courts places clear restrictions on this interpretation, the ruling could fundamentally alter the balance between democratic choice, political renewal, and the prevention of excessive concentration of presidential power.
Perhaps in closing, what should Ghanaians essentially be watching out for as the Supreme Court considers these cases, and regardless of that eventual ruling, what does this debate tell us about the health and perhaps the resilience of Ghana's democracy?
Well, I can tell you that Ghana's democracy so far so good is quite resilient. But then, you see, the good thing is that President Mahama has stated on more than one occasion that this is his last term. I mean, he leaves office, no matter what, he will leave office in 2029. The next elections are in 2028. He will leave in 2029. Okay, that's one good thing. So, no matter what the Supreme Court rules, whether it will insert the word consecutive within the current clause, or leave the clause as it is, and maybe allow somebody to go for one term, lose, and then stay the opposition for 8 years and come back. I believe Ghanaians will take it. There might be some protests, but Ghanaians will accept whatever verdicts the Supreme Court renders.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank you for helping us try and make sense of that latest development in Ghana. That was Africa analyst and Africa Briefing publisher who was speaking to us a short while ago, Jonathan Ofe Ansah.